throne lost, a marriage alliance broken, a stolen dragon, a murder that needs vengeance. These are all different sentences that I really feel like show the tragedy of the women of House Velaryon. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about all of the women of House Velaryon and how I feel like the whole entire House of the Dragon franchise failed them. So if you're interested in that, keep on watching. But before I can really tell you about how the overall House of the Dragon franchise let down one of the most prominent houses in Westeros, I have to give you guys a little background knowledge on who House Velaryon is in the greater GOT franchise. Today I'm going to be reading off my handy dandy iPad, and here I wrote, the House of Velaryon has always been a prominent house in the Game of Thrones franchise. They are Velaryon descended, meaning that they are the Targaryens' closest allies in both lineage as well as overall support. They are known for their exceptional naval skills as well as their loyalty to the Targaryens. The Velaryons are also known for their love of dragon riding, and they have produced several dragon riders over the years. One of the most notable Velaryons was Lord Corlys Velaryon, who was also known as the Sea Snake. He was a famous sailor and trader who became the first Lord of the Tides and the Master of Driftmark. Corlys is also the husband of Rhaenys Targaryen, the queen who rode the dragon known as Meleys. Corlys was instrumental in the Targaryens' reign, serving as the hand of the king several times and also playing a major role in the Small Council. And so with that little blurb that I read to you guys, you can really see how impactful the House Velaryon was in terms of the Game of Thrones House of the Dragon franchise. They would have to be the secondary most powerful family in the realm, and we can really see how powerful and impactful House Velaryon is by looking at its connection to the Targaryen family. I already talked about how the Velaryons are known as like the main allies of the Targaryens, but I really want to talk about like the blood connections between them. So at least in the official House of the Dragon show, the main way House Velaryon is connected to House Targaryen is through the intermarriage of Princess Rhaenys Targaryen and Lord Corlys Velaryon. And something that I really want to mention that really gives House Velaryon an extra power boost is that this lady right here is their matriarch, and this is Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. Princess Rhaenys Targaryen was the queen who never was. In the first episode of the House of the Dragon franchise, we see that in the whole succession battle that happened with King Jaehaerys, I believe, we really get to see that it was a battle between Princess Rhaenys and I think Prince Viserys at the time. And she lost that, not due to any issue of her own, but due to the fact of her gender. Westeros and the overall GOT franchise is a very sexist, very misogynistic society that will always choose a male heir over a female heir just based off sexism alone. And even though Rhaenys was pretty much overlooked only due to her gender, she was able to let this transgression slide and continue to live her life pretty well, and she ended up having 2 twin children for Lord Corlys Velaryon, and this is Laena and Laenor Velaryon. And this is generation 2 of House Velaryon.
I just wanted to take a quick break from the regularly scheduled content to thank all of my Patreons who are currently subscribed to my Patreon. Thank you at Hariana Hook, as well as Blythe, Charlie, and Brian for subscribing to my Patreon. If you want to be included in my Patreon shout out, please make sure to subscribe to my Patreon. We have a lot of fun things to offer over there. And now let's get back to the regularly scheduled content.
Now let's talk about generation 2 of House Velaryon. I really feel like the first way I knew that this house was going to be completely disrespected was the scene where after Aemma, the current queen of Westeros, dies, everybody is trying to make their daughters marry, you know, the king in order to get some type of power boost for their house. Ignore the fact that she's a child here. This is what they did in the olden days. They literally offer up their daughter Laena to marry King Viserys because they know that if they were able to combine their houses, they're going to be very powerful. And even though Laena at this time is definitely a child, she is most definitely the best option for the king to marry because it would have secured his power with one of the most powerful houses in the Westerosi, in Westeros practically, but he says no. And you might be thinking, oh, Emma, he said no because he didn't want to marry someone that young. Okay, the next thing he does after practically sliding the Velaryons again, because remember, he technically stole Rhaenys' throne, and now he's slighting their young, suitable daughter. He decides to marry his daughter's best friend, who in the franchise is Alicent's Hightower. And Alicent is literally the same age as his daughter. They're literally childhood best friends. So he just went out of his way to associate himself with the Hightowers to practically sets House Velaryon away from the throne for a secondary time. And this direct marriage will literally cause House Targaryen to lose their dragons. If only he hadn't slighted House Velaryon for like the second time, all of the tragedy that we see in the show would have never happened. And Lord Corlys is doing everything in his power to make sure that his children are having advantageous marriages. And this is exactly how we get to see Laena Velaryon marrying into the Targaryen household by marrying Prince Daemon Targaryen. And also Lord Corlys is able to form a marriage alliance between the Crown Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen and his son Laenor Targaryen, who is currently the heir to Driftmark. And it is literally with these marriages to the Targaryens in one way or another that we really get to see House Velaryon take so many L's. At least in the show, Laena and Daemon are not portrayed to have a really good relationship. Like, it is really much hinted at in the show that Daemon does not respect Laena. And in the books, it wasn't like that at all. In fact, in the books, it is hinted that Laena, Daemon, and the Crown Princess Rhaenyra are literally in a throuple. But the show is so focused on making sure that House Velaryon doesn't get any screen time, we literally don't get to see this. And due to the lack of development that was much needed for one of our Black characters in this show, we literally don't get a lot of love and or adoration for this ship, when personally for me it is one of the least toxic ships that we get to see in the entire show. And when I tell you, as somebody who's actively in this fandom, I see no edits, no fan art, no nothing of this couple, and it's all due to the show's deliberate choice to not to develop this relationship. And that's exactly how we have more people shipping Daemon and Rhaenyra over Laena and Daemon, when it's literally hinted in the books that they were a throuple. But sadly, it wasn't just Laena's relationships that were underdeveloped and left wanting. It was also her entire character arc. I don't know if you guys know this, but Laena, like I hinted before, was really close with Rhaenyra, and she had that kind of like flirtationship that people say they see in Alicent and Rhaenyra, but canonically in the books it was supposed to be Laena and Rhaenyra. And yet again, we can see with this how they did the book to show translation, the lack of development for Laena Velaryon as a character. The lack of development for Laena can be really seen in all of the frequent jump skips / time skips that the first season of House of the Dragon had. We really get to see the slight flirtationship that Daemon and Laena have, and we literally skip to after the twins were born and the fact that Laena is pregnant and they're arguing about wanting to live in like Westeros closer to Laena's family, and we really don't know who she is. At first, I was like, who is this lady? If I didn't know that there's only so many Black women in the show, I would have literally not known that it was Laena. And literally the tragic scene where she literally asked her dragon to set her on fire, it didn't hit the same as, let's say, Aemma's birthing scene where she dies, or even Rhaenyra's scene where we see her stillborn daughter, all because the showrunners did not develop her character like that. I literally was so shocked, and it wasn't a shocking moment where I was like really able to empathize with her. I literally was looking at my computer screen like, what's going on here? Because we didn't have enough time with this character to really empathize with her tragic way of dying, when it is a continuous theme in the House of the Dragon franchise. And I really feel like the lack of emotional development for Laena was such an emotional waste, because we see how much it affected her twins. I'm gonna call them the Dragon Twins for the sake of this video, but their actual names are Baela and Rhaena. And just for the sake of me not ranting forever about how the lack of development for House Velaryon's characters, and specifically woman, hurt me, I'm gonna be reading off my script for the next section of this video. So right here I wrote, Laena's death marked the beginning of a generational tragedy for House Velaryon. Baela and Rhaena were left without a mother and were mostly raised by their dad, who was distant and uncaring. What's really upset me about this situation is that Daemon in the books is not characterized like this. The one thing we know about Daemon is that he cares about his Targaryen bloodline, and in the show, they specifically removed scenes of him being kind to his daughters, holding them after the tragic death of their mother, because the showrunners said that they did not want him to be too sympathetic and they wanted him to be a morally gray character. This man right here, Daemon Targaryen, you wanted to remove the one scene where we really get to see him being super sympathetic and a good dad because you wanted him to be morally gray. Like, he doesn't chop off people's heads. Like, he literally, like, chops off people's heads. He hits Rhaenyra that one time. He killed his first wife. How much more morally gray do we need to see? Like, he's already in like the darker side of morally gray. And due to the fact that they were prioritizing Daemon's morally greatness, we directly lose scenes of our dragon twins just for Daemon's characterization, which was really, really tragic. At least in the show, due to this nonsense that I just explained to you, Baela and Rhaena's relationship with their dad is strained, and they felt very neglected and unloved. And at least that's how the show portrayed it as. And before I can talk about the Generation 3, which consists of Rhaena and Baela, I need to talk about the last remaining member of Generation 2, which most definitely has to be Laenor Velaryon. So Laenor Velaryon, as I described like probably 10 minutes ago, is the twin of Laena Velaryon, and he is the heir to Driftmark. He is officially confirmed to be a gay man, but due to his responsibilities as heir, he is forced to marry Crown Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen. And the scene where we learn this information of his actual sexuality, we see Laenor's lover. And this is a very, very short scene. And in the same episode where we see the introduction of, I guess, I don't want to say our first canonically gay characters in the House of the Dragon franchise, but that's low-key what I want to say. We literally see him die tragically at the hands of Sir Criston Cole. If that's not that man's name, I'm gonna put an edit on the screen. But Sir Criston Cole literally kills Laenor's lover, and he doesn't get in trouble for this. Like, I feel like that should have been a hanging offense. But no. He literally gets to dilly-dally and hang around after this. And this was such an evident example of the whole bury your gays trope. Don't worry guys, I'm doing that video sometime this month. I promise I am. But I was just like, what was the point of introducing Laenor and making him a confirmed gay man if you're going to kill his lover in a tragic way that same episode? And after the whole murder that happened at their wedding, because I forgot to mention the murder of his lover happened at his wedding, we literally see how much the murder of his lover affects Laenor. We saw a couple episodes before this, we see that Laenor is like a very like energetic man. He's ready to defend his father, and we see him being like a good soldier. But after like his lover is slain, we can literally see a shift in Laenor, where we see Laenor practically becoming a shell of himself. He's a drunkard. He doesn't really engage in politics, even though he's married to the crown princess at this point, and it's overall a mess. Laenor and Rhaenyra's relationship is definitely a marriage of convenience, and we can definitely see this in the way they allow each other to have extramarital affairs practically. It is definitely hinted in the books, but definitely confirmed in the show, that Rhaenyra's children are definitely not Laenor's. We can see this by looking at this picture right here. Those are Rhaenyra's kids. This is Laenor. I want you to take a good look, because the math ain't mathin'. The math ain't mathin'. But even though it is super obvious to us, the audience, that those aren't Laenor's kids, Laenor still claims those kids as his, and he still very much cares for him. And I also think this definitely has to do with the fact that Rhaenyra definitely lets Laenor do whatever the heck he wants. It is definitely hinted in the show that he has his own new lovers, but I think the tragic death of his first lover, like that at his wedding, definitely made him like depressed. And it isn't just the fact that Rhaenyra keeps having kids that are obviously not his that's an issue. It's the fact that everybody knows. And what gets me is Queen Alicent, you know, Rhaenyra's childhood best friend, at least canonically in the show, keeps making little digs towards him. Like whenever Rhaenyra gives birth to one of these kids, Alicent will force her to walk out of her childbirthing chamber to see the kid. And she'll literally look at Laenor like, hopefully one of these kids will look like you. Like, mad shady for no reason. And to make the entire situation worse, he does eventually get news that his sister A died in childbirth, but specifically died by fire, you know, via her dragon. And this man is devastated. And I just have to read off my script for this section, because the next following events that happen after Laenor finds out about the death of, you know, his sister were were completely outrageous. After the tragic death of his sister, Laenor is devastated. At the funeral, we literally get to see Laenor grieving the death of his beloved twins. And instead of focusing on, the tragedy of this situation, the show decides to focus on Rhaenyra and Daemon flirting with each other, and I think they eventually sneak off to do the vertical tango while we literally see Laenor in the sea crying, practically trying to sink to the bottom to get to his sister, because in the traditional House Velaryon, burial methods, they sink the caskets into the ocean because that is practically where I think they come from. And so we see this man crying, trying to drown himself, trying to get to his sister. And then the camera pans like this. We literally see Rhaenyra and Daemon trying to get it on. When I tell you I was shocked, guys, I was shocked. And this sequence is even worse when you realize that the show didn't hint or even imply about the throuple situation that I keep mentioning, because now it would make more sense why they did that, because it's two scorned lovers trying to grieve in their own way over their lost, tertiary lover. But because of the lack of context, we just see Rhaenyra and Daemon being assholes after this. And I think after the show shows us them doing the vertical tango, we literally see a scene where Rhaenyra and Daemon have a secret Velaryon wedding. And as the audience, we're literally looking from side to side Daemon's wife is dead, but Rhaenyra's husband is definitely alive. So y'all gonna, cause in my head I saw that and I was like, oh, they're gonna kill my mans. They're gonna kill my man so they can do the weird uncle niece lover thing they got going on. And that's exactly what happens. Luckily for us, they just fake his murder. They just fake his murder. I think it's hinted in the book that Rhaenyra super just killed him, but for the sake of the show, they decided to let my man escape to I don't know, Essos. Who knows where that man is currently? No one knows. No one knows. But they fake his murder. However, nobody knows that Laenor is actually alive. So we see Lord Corlys and Rhaenys depressed. We see them depressed because in a span of I'm gonna say maybe a month, they lost their daughter, now they lost their son. And we can just see Rhaenys holding on to the little dragon twins because that's all she has. That's physically all she has left. And it's also very much hinted in the show that there is a lot of resentment towards Rhaenyra for this murder, because she feels like she used her princess, her princess privileges in order to get rid of Laenor. Because immediately she pops up with her new husband, who was literally her dead daughter's husband. I'm telling you, this family tree in the House of the Dragon series is definitely a family bush. It's so hard to keep up with, y'all. I hope you guys have been able to keep up so far. This next section of the video is definitely titled Justice for the Dragon Twins, because out of all of the generations of House Velaryon, I really feel like this is the generation that not only the show does wrong, the fandom does wrong, everyone just does my good sisters wrong. Baela and Rhaena, justice for my sisters. Like I said before, the generation I feel like gets done most wrong definitely has to be the third generation, which consists of Baela and Rhaena Targaryen. Mind you, they're Targaryens at this point, even though they have Valyrian ancestry via their mom. And this show does these characters so wrong. There are so many scenes that specifically are shot. They were written, filmed, and shot, and I think even edited, but we literally don't get to see them because no one cares about my good sisses, the Dragon Twins. Rhaena and Baela Targaryen are very pivotal members in the whole entire Song of the Dance. No, what? In the Dance of Dragons, but due to prioritizing other characters, they were literally put in the side. Like I told you guys, the moments where we see Daemon hugging his daughters was literally cut out because the showrunners didn't want him to seem like a good guy, even though we know who Daemon Targaryen is. The fandom actively ignores the Dragon Twins. We barely see any edits. I think I see more edits for Lucerys, who is, I guess, spoilers for the show, is canonically dead at the end of season 1, then I see the Dragon Twins, which is no comments. I'm literally gonna say no comments for that. And it's such a shame because the fandom, specifically they just be doing little sneaky stuff to specifically get on my nerves, but I want to continue on. Bela and Rhaena Targaryen are specifically going to be such major players in season 2, especially with their dragons Moon Dancer and Sunfire respectively playing a pivotal role, but their stories are not given time to grow.
My main problem when it comes to House Velaryon is that the showrunners, Ryan and Sarah, made House Velaryon black and then completely sidelined them for like other main white characters, and that's a problem when the fandom is already unfortunately very racist, and you make this great house black and then you don't do anything with them, and that's very problematic. And House Velaryon has a very rich and very interesting history that unfortunately we never saw. We also never saw much about Corlys, his relationship with his granddaughters. We never saw much interaction with even Rhaena and Bela with their grandparent, which is terrible because they were very loved by their grandparents. And when it came to like Bela and Rhaena separately, they only got, I want to say, like a couple lines, and when you find out, myself included, that there were like cut scenes with Daemon showing that he's a loving father, Bela showing that she's Daemon's daughter, like there's a reason why. We'll find out later in the series, if they go this way, on why Bela and Rhaena are called the Dragon Twins for a reason. Bela is the warrior, Rhaena is the politician. Like there's a lot of stuff that Ryan and Sarah unfortunately cropped out, and then they expect us to kind of just let it go. I don't fully accept that. I don't fully understand that. But you know what? I will give them a chance. Now, season 2, we're going to see hopefully a lot of House Velaryon because they are one of Rhaenyra's greatest allies. Like they're one of her greatest allies. So maybe we'll get some more, maybe not. I don't have a lot of faith, to be honest, in Ryan and Sarah, but I will give it all a chance. I'm just going to be reading you guys some of the most egregious things that happened in relation to the Dragon Twins that had me like, yo, justice for my girls. During their mother's funeral, everybody and anybody was up to shenanigans. Like I told y'all, Daemon and Rhaenyra were doing the vertical tango, but at the same time, I think they were doing the little sideways shuffle. Tell me why Aemon Targaryen is going to steal their mother's dragon and ride her around like she isn't a war dragon from the ancient days. That really had me angry. And also, Aemon also had the audacity to be mad when Bela and Rhaena were upset that he stole their mother's dragon the same day, or I think maybe the day after their mother's funeral. In the show, their father is portrayed as emotionally distant from them, only to further his development and not theirs. And almost immediately after their mother dies, their uncle dies. And then almost immediately after that, we see their father gets married to, I'm trying to figure out the family tree. Maybe their cousin? I don't know. But practically the twins get a new stepmother very, very fast. And you already know in the House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones franchise, whenever there's a stepmother involved, it's about to be a hot mess situation. Luckily for my girls, Rhaenyra is a good mother, person, and stepmother. But still, if I was those little girls and I was in this situation, I'd be like, oh, I'm screwed. I'm most definitely screwed. They lucked up in that regard. And now I really want to talk about the scenes that were like deleted, that practically should have been included, or maybe even included in a limited edition box set release, because shows still do that, right? Like they release like deleted scenes and you can buy them on VHS or DVD. To be honest, I don't know. We should have seen them scenes one way or another. The scene that literally let me know that these girls were not being respected by the showrunners was the scene that happened after Rhaenyra was crowned queen. Bela is very similar to her father as described in the books, and I hope we get to see it in season 2.
We must collect Rhaena and leave Dragonstone at once.
And go where?
Safe to High Tide.
High Tide won't be safe. The Greens will assume all the clever for Rhaenyra.
Be safer than Dragonstone.
If war is coming, it's coming for all of us. We cannot hide from it.
I've suffered too much loss, Bela. I cannot endure another.
I am a dragon rider. Like my mother, and father, and you. If the agreed to reach to usurp our queen's throne, then they must be answered with fire and blood. Do you think I jest?
I just saw my daughter for the first time in years.
She tells her grandmother Rhaenys, I'm gonna go on my dragon and I'm going to defend my queen's honor. And you can really see in this scene how heartbroken Rhaenys is, because in that moment, we can literally see that Rhaenys sees her daughter Laena in Baela. Like, it was like a very cathartic moment for her, because this is what young Laena looked like and this is what Baela looked like. And I feel like Baela is the one who looks more like, you know, their mother. And that scene had me tearing up when, I don't know who leaked it, but they leaked it. And I'm like, you couldn't put that in the show, but you could put the scenes of Aegon doing the nasty to himself outside that window and we gotta see his cheeks. And you also put the scene of Alicent doing some foot fetish stuff in the show, but we couldn't get that. Man, y'all. This show is unreal.
I'm Vera from Watcher in the Weir on TikTok, talking with the topic of House of the Dragon and the Velaryons for Ella Pastoral. So I'm a primarily book reader. I came into the show secondarily, as a lot of people did, so my viewpoint is very colored by that. But for me, it was pretty egregious, actually, how much the Velaryons were minimized and set aside in a show and a time period within the world of A Song of Ice and Fire where they were kind of at the height of their power. It's actually one of the tragedies of the dance that House Velaryon never really makes it back to the point that they were before it. They were Rhaenyra Targaryen's probably staunchest allies, and in the end, things only changed due to disaster. In the books originally, Laena Velaryon was probably one of Rhaenyra's closest friends, if not absolutely her closest friend. She more played the role that they tried to give Alicent in the show, because Alicent was much older than Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra was like 8 or 9 when Alicent married Viserys, who she had a much smaller age gap with. I think it was only like a 7-year age gap. And it was a much more of a wicked stepmother situation, even though that does happen in episodes 6 and 7. But Laena Velaryon was Rhaenyra's closest friend, and it was noted that while Rhaenyra misliked her stepmother, the Queen Alicent Hightower, she grew fond and more than fond of her good sister Laena Velaryon, because this was kind of framed that they got really close when Laenor married Rhaenyra and the girls were about 16. Rhaenyra, Daemon, and Laena would very regularly race and play with their dragons over King's Landing, Shipbreaker Bay. It might not have been Shipbreaker Bay. I don't actually have the book in front of me, but they would regularly fly together and race together and spend time together. And one of the really interesting facets of that was when Laena was pregnant with her third child, Rhaenyra herself flew to attend Laena during the pregnancy and birth, and the fact that the crown princess and heir of the kingdom flew to attend a lady who was married to her uncle for her pregnancy, that's not a small thing in medieval vernacular. That's incredibly intensive. And Rhaenyra sat vigil over Laena's body with Daemon after she passed, and that also is quite telling. It was also quite interesting that Baela and Rhaena, through the entirety of their lives, more or less, were pretty loyal to Rhaenyra and very much implied to be very happy with the betrothals to Rhaenyra's sons, which had actually in the book been done by the time that the children were all around toddler age. So Baela and Jace and Luke and Rhaena had been betrothed essentially their entire lives. And then the sidelining of Baela and Rhaena as well. Those are the dragon twins, the ferocious and bold and willful daughters of Daemon Targaryen and of Laena Velaryon. Baela was basically a mini Daemon. She was absolutely fearless and delighted in breaking societal expectation and convention. She proudly boasted about sleeping with the sons of a man that the council wanted to betroth her to after the dance. Like, she did not take anybody's shit. Whereas Rhaena had a bit softer power, but she was still just as intelligent, and if you really look at her, she was just as daring. I think she probably took a bit more after Laena than Baela did, but they both definitely were very much both of their parents' daughters, and they also were Rhaenyra's in a way, because after the loss of their mother, she took them in as her own. Yeah. There was, and the fact that in a lot of the episodes, there was a lot of insults levied against the Velaryon house, specifically by the Green Party, and they're never made to answer for that is absolutely flabbergasting. The fact that the night of Laena's funeral, Aemon sneaks out and claims Vhagar and gets into a fight with the daughters of Laena, and the fact that neither Corlys nor Laenor demanded satisfaction for that. Yeah, Aemon lost an eye, but that was a massive insult against House Velaryon, and honestly, he should have answered for it. And we all know why they sidelined the Velaryons. Like, it's not subtle, and it's disappointing, because the Velaryons are genuinely one of the most interesting houses in all of A Song of Ice and Fire, and we've been robbed.
Another situation that doesn't have to do with the showrunners for once is definitely how the fandom is treating these dragon twins. No fan art, very minimal fan art, and tell me, and trust me, I've been looking, and there was this really terrible fandom thing that went on where somebody created a little infographic of all the House Targaryen members as we see them in the show. And tell me why they excluded my sisses. They had Jon on there twice in a bleach blonde wig, but not Baela and not Rhaena. Jon, who canonically for the majority of his life was considered a bastard of the North, but not the two legitimate daughters of Daemon Targaryen. Make it make sense, y'all. Make it make sense.
Now, please keep in mind this video is going to be major spoilers for the book Fire and Blood. I am not going to go into the show because I don't feel they're going to do these characters justice. So this is what happens in the book. Now, in the book, Rhaena and Baela are twins. Baela is actually named after her paternal grandfather, Baelon. Now, while Baela is a warrior, loves to fight, is very much like Daemon, Rhaena is a diplomat. It is actually Rhaena who actually helps smooth a lot of the turmoil after the whole Dance of Dragons. Because she's diplomatic, she actually gets the name Rhaena of Pentos. Now, what makes these two so impactful in the war is how much they're influencing a lot of what goes on, and also how they advocate for their grandfather's release, even though he's technically betrays Rhaenyra, but also how they both bring their own individual set of skills to the table. Baela's a warrior through and through, and when the dance first happens, she's out there wanting to fight with Jace. Now, Jace does not want her to do that. He'd rather her be safe and stay, but she refuses. But Baela is not afraid to go into battle, and it's actually her who goes in and fights Aegon II, and she badly wounds him. His dragon, Sunfire, does die, and her dragon, Moondancer, also sadly dies. But while Aegon jumps from his dragon's back, she waits for her dragon to get to the ground, and while it does tragically die, she finds the strength to crawl away. Now, I can't get into full detail of what happens, I only have 3 minutes, but I will say, after a lot of shenanigans, Baela does get captured, and Aegon II does attempt to get her executed, but Corlys demands her release. It's one of his demands when he has to join Aegon II's court. Now, after the whole dance and everything, Rhaena and Bela do fight to have their grandfather Corlys pardoned because when Cregan Stark comes, he considers Corlys a traitor. But these two demand that he be released on his own cognizance because he's their grandfather. Of course, they would fight for him. The funny thing is, after the dance, both of these two are heavily considered to be heirs to the throne should Aegon the youngest, Rhaenyra's youngest son, should he not have an heir, these two are heavily considered to be queens of Westeros. Now, while they think about crowning Bela because she is the older twin, they find her personality is too much like her father's. She's too headstrong and she won't listen to the council. So they're like, no, maybe we should go with Rhaena. Now, Rhaena, being a diplomat, is definitely the more agreeable of the two and says, I will do what is best for the realm and marry where you lords see best. She actually marries into the Hightower family. I wish I could get into more detail about everything, but again, I only had like 3 minutes. But I will say, the Dance of Dragons would have gone much differently had these two not been in it. Actually, who inherited the throne and everything would have gone differently, because it is because of these two that Aegon the youngest, or Aegon the Sad, meets his second wife.
Okay, while I was editing this video, I realized that I forgot a major part of my criticism towards the whole way that the House of Velaryon was done by the show. And that most definitely has to do with the costume design of our Black characters. So if you guys hadn't been involved in all of the fandom discourse, you probably wouldn't know, but everybody was in the general consensus that the way House Velaryon, and specifically the Black people of the show, was styled was just overall extremely horrendous. I'm going to be putting a few examples on the screen for you guys. And at first, I thought that the criticism wasn't valid and that people overall were being really harsh on the way that these characters were styled. But then it really clicked and dawned on me that these people are literally second only to the king and queen of Westeros. Like, if this was an actual medieval European setting, they'd be like the Grand Duke and Grand Duchess of the realm. And the fact that the characters were styled like this and not given their full respect is something that we really need to talk about. And while I was on Tumblr, I saw this really good post that was made by Richard's Third Nipple, and they were just practically talking about how all of the Black characters were styled like they had a white mom who did not care enough about them to style their hair. So I'm just going to be putting up their posts where they made very great examples of how the members of House Velaryon could possibly be styled in season 2. So number 1, they said that they should utilize the Bailey sisters as inspiration for Rhaena specifically. And as you guys are seeing by the pictures I'm putting on the screen, we could really see how good Rhaena would look with actual tight locks. She is practically a princess of the realm, seeing as her dad is literally Prince Daemon Targaryen. So the fact that she doesn't have like tight, fresh locks is a shame. The next thing I want to show you guys was their lookbook for Bela. They suggested that we cut Bela's hair and focus on braids and beads. And like I stated several times in this video, Bela is the warrior twin out of the dragon twins, and so I really felt like short hair would suit her, specifically for the scenes we're going to see in season 2 if they try to give her some of her original characterization. I also want to show you guys the lookbook that this user made for Nettles. Nettles is supposed to be appearing in season 2, and I'm just hoping that they give her some respect. And I'm really loving the different braided styles that this user recommended that could be done for Nettles, because I feel like if they do just straight up do wigs, they're not going to be given based off of what we've seen so far in season 1 of House of the Dragon. And this right here is one of my personal favorites. Obviously, we're not going to be seeing any more of Lady Laena, seeing as she's no longer alive, but imagine what we could have gotten. I really feel like the user said, Laena was supposed to be our Princess Diana, and I really love all of the wide variety of different looks that they put for Laena here. And so for Corlys is someone who I feel like got the best treatment in terms of hair. And so the user also suggested for Lord Corlys we could get different hairstyles for him. I really feel like out of all the House Velaryon members, he was the one who got the better treatment of hair. But I really feel like in season 2 we can get more in terms of his hairstyles, and these are just some good examples that the user suggested. And Laenor, I know we're not going to see Laenor anymore because they've absconded him to wherever he's supposed to be. But imagine what we could have had, y'all. Imagine what we could have had. And I'm just going to be linking the full thread in the description for you guys to go look at, because they have members of House Velaryon that we haven't really got introduced to yet in season 1 that should be appearing in season 2. And overall, this post was really good. I also want to recommend bring exposure to some artists I found on Tumblr and overall other social media websites that I really liked, who gave really good fan art of House Velaryon. I already talked about how I feel like it's very hard to find good fan art of House Velaryon. So I just wanted to use my small little platform to bring notice to a lot of these creators. And I want you guys to go support them because they low-key really ate. They ate real bad in terms of making fan art. Let me know if you guys want a whole separate video on how the costuming should have been done in House of the Dragon to really give that royal regal feel. But let's actually go back into the main topic of this video.
And so yeah, I really wanted to make this video because I really feel like justice for the whole entire House Velaryon. They physically couldn't catch a break throughout the entire series. I really loved House of the Dragon, but I still feel like I needed to speak up on this. I also have a lot of hopes for season 2. Currently, we're in the middle of a writer's strike, and that's making me scared. And I've been talking to a lot of my mutuals who are big fans of the House of the Dragon franchise, and they are not excited. They have a lot of low hopes, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that we get to see a lot of development for Bela and Laena, because I really feel like they are so pivotal, because I've been reading the book spoilers. So hopefully they get some justice, but as you know, I'll definitely be here for a part 2 whenever the second season of House of the Dragon comes. And yeah, that was pretty much all of my thoughts in regards to House of the Dragon and specifically House Velaryon. If you guys like my commentary on this subject, make sure that you hit the thumbs up button. It really helps the video and gets it pushed out in the algorithm. If you guys have your own fan theories and or comments about House of the Dragon, let me know in the comments. I love talking about this show. It's one of my top shows of all time, no jokes. So let me know. And if you guys want to see me again, make sure that you subscribe. And I'll definitely see you guys in the next one. Bye!